Welcome back to That Tracks F1 podcast. Excited to have you with me today for this, the preview of the Australian Grand Prix this weekend in Melbourne. How excited are we, guys? I'm absolutely excited beyond words. I cannot wait. It feels like it's been such a long time. And finally, it's here. Our F1 is back. For those of us in the UK, it's definitely either a late night or an early morning, depending on which approach you take. Because for us in the UK, it's a 4 a.m. race, which it's very difficult, I think, to stay up till 4 a.m. and stay awake for the race. But it's also, in my mind, if you get up at 6 a.m., that's kind of okay. If you get up at 5 a.m., that's a little bit of a push. Getting up at 4, no, not liking it. But we really can't complain in the UK, can we? Because the vast majority of the races are shown for us at a very reasonable time. Whereas in Australia and other places, you guys are always having to get up in the middle of the night. So I'll stop whinging. So before we go any further, if I could ask you guys, would you kindly subscribe? Because that would really, really make my day. And if you look for us on Instagram and Facebook, That Tracks F1 Podcast, if you could add and follow us there, that would be lovely. Thank you very much. So, Melbourne. Who can forget last year's race at Melbourne? I don't think anybody expected to turn up there and for it to be a wet race, especially when we had 5 rookies on the grid. I think we knew we were in for something different. We had 5 DNFs and a DNS for Isaac Hadjar. Who can forget that awful thing that happened to him, going out on the formation lap the way he did? Oh, that's not a dry eye in the house. I mean, it absolutely tugged at the heartstrings, and his reaction, I mean, he must have been devastated. But look at the way he bounced back. Look at the way he came back last season and really, really proved that he's got every right to be there. So last year's race, of course, was won by Lando Norris, who kicked off his World Championship year with a really good win. It was not quite such a good day for Oscar Piastri, who was sitting quite comfortably in second behind Norris, and it was looking like it was going to be a papaya 1-2, but poor Oscar slid off in the rain, and unfortunately, although he did get going again, which was certainly something to witness, because I think when I saw him go off as far as he did onto that wet grass, I thought, well, that's your race over. So he did incredibly well to get back on the track and rejoin, and finishing in 9th and in the points. But what a disappointment at your home race. So getting back to this year, there's lots and lots of speculation, isn't there? Lots of speculation about which teams are going to do well. I think all of the Ferrari fans are feeling very buoyed up at the moment, and good, because last year was a long year for you guys. So to see them go so well in testing and to see both drivers, for the most part, react really, really positively to the car is really good. So yeah, there's lots of speculation about Ferrari. All anybody seems to have done is talk about Mercedes and how Mercedes are going to come straight out the blocks and just beat everybody. They're going to be seconds up the road. And that may be the case. But I don't know. I think that it's going to be reasonably close. You watch now, they're just going to disappear into the distance and everybody else can just pack up and go home. But yeah, I think there's a lot of talk about the top 4 teams, as it's seen that, the top 4 teams, the top 8 drivers, it's going to be Red Bull, Mercedes, McLaren and Ferrari, and that's who, in most people's minds, is going to be fighting it out for the wins and the places. But I wouldn't be so sure. We only need a little bit of a curveball, don't we, in these early races, like last year's wet race, and you'll start seeing some of those more midfield teams coming through. For me, I would love to see Alpine well up in the points there. I've touched on this before. Lots of admiration for Gasly. Really, really rate Franco. I would love to see them landing well up in the points, which could happen. And I think we're certainly going to see, as the year goes on and the car development carries on, that we are going to get a bigger variety of race winners. Hopefully, because that all makes for good viewing, doesn't it? And I know that there's also been lots and lots of chat about whether these regulations are going to work, whether they're going to need tweaking, whether this person's happy and that person's not happy. And really, as annoying as it is, because we are hearing this as well, is that we are just going to have to wait and see. There's been all of this talk about the compression ratio. There's been all of this talk about, are they going to get off the line safely? And I would like to think that it will all just be all right on the night, as they say. So moving on to some predictions then. As a family, we like to have a little predictions competition. We started this last year for the F1. We all love and follow the F1. Well, I say all. We do have a holdout. We do have one that refuses to become assimilated into the hive mind, which is a real shame, but we are working on him. We will get there. He will eventually join the cult. You know, we've decided now maybe not so much for a head-on attack. We're trying to like ambush him from the sides by trying to get his girlfriend interested because he's already got a workmate that really likes it. So we're chipping away at him. He'll definitely be there. He's very stubborn, but we'll get him in the end. Ha ha ha. Yeah, you know who you are. But the rest of us all do a prediction or a group of predictions for every race weekend. These are all kept in what is known as the folder of SAD, which I'm in charge of. Woohoo! And it has different sections: qualifying top three, race top three, sprint quali top three, sprint top three. We did do drive of the day and fastest lap last year, but we're thinking about swapping that out for something else this year. And we have a season wildcard each, which is worth the most points, where you pick a wildcard that encompasses the whole season. For instance, mine last year, my prediction was that Max would leave Red Bull and go to Mercedes, and I thought that was coming in. Oh my goodness, there was so much speculation and talk, and he was definitely flirting with the idea. But no, he stayed put at Red Bull and lost me 15 points, which I'm not at all cross with Max for, because I had absolutely no issue with the fact that at the end of the year, I came second in this competition. Yeah, I'm not at all salty about losing to my teenage son. So yeah, Max owes me on that one. But yeah, so we really enjoy doing that. We score points for different predictions. And as I say, at the end of the year, it's all worthwhile because at Christmas, one of us, as it was this year, my teen son, got presented with the family F1 predictions trophy. I'll be sharing a picture of it to our socials for you to have a look at, because I really want you to bask in its glory. It's a wonderful trophy. It's made out of genuine solid plastic, and it's absolutely worth every penny and every bead of sweat that's put into these predictions. So yes, doing predictions is something I've definitely got some practice at. Last year we did a wild card for every race weekend, which we've decided on reflection is probably a little much. So this year we're each having 6 wild cards, and we can pick and choose which weekend we decide to play them. So yes, predictions are something I'm quite used to now. I don't know that necessarily makes me any better at them, but we'll give it a go. So what I'm going to do in these prediction episodes is I am going to predict my top 5 in the race. There'll also be a section called Hit the Mark or Pull Over and Park, where I will predict who I think will have a very good weekend at whichever Grand Prix we're at, be that a team, be that a driver. And also, conversely, Pull Over and Park will cover somebody who I think will struggle, or a team that will struggle. And we'll see how often I'm, hilariously wrong, really. But why not? Let's do it. So, top 5 for the Australian Grand Prix. This is probably actually one of the most difficult predictions I've ever done, because we really have nothing to go on in these new regulations, other than everybody seems to have a consensus of opinion that there's 4 teams really in the running. It really is a lot more guesswork than I would like, but I've picked my top 5. I've picked it and repicked it and swapped it around about a dozen or more times, but at some point I'm just going to have to settle on an order and hope for the best. So here we go. In 5th place, I've predicted Oscar Piastri. Now, I would actually like Oscar to be further up. I would love to see Oscar on the podium at his home race. I think that would be really, really lovely. And at one point when I did these predictions, I did put him on the podium. I really don't know. So I do think he'll be in the top 5. I've put him in 5th, but I'm hoping actually that he'll be higher than that. In 4th place, I have put Charles Leclerc. I do think the Ferrari should go reasonably well here, and I do think that Charles seems very happy with the package he's got this year, so we'll see how he goes. Now, when it comes to the podium, in 3rd place, I have got Max Verstappen. Now, although the Red Bull is probably, out of the top 4, it is the only team that doesn't have the Mercedes engine, and obviously they've opted for their own affiliation with Ford, so they don't have the Mercedes engine. but it looked fairly handy in Bahrain testing. And one thing we all know about Max, don't we, is he will drag that car kicking and screaming over that finish line no matter what. He will extract the best out of that car that he can. And I think that there is every chance he'll be on that podium. So I've popped him on there in third. In second, I have actually got George Russell. I think that George Russell will go very well at Australia. He went pretty well last year. They're definitely the hot favourites, Mercedes, aren't they, to do extremely well this season. And the one thing we know about Russell is that he's very, very consistent. I think if you look back on last year, both he and Norris were probably the most consistent drivers in that when they had a bad weekend, in inverted commas, they were still in the points. They were still up there. You know, for some drivers, a bad weekend meant you DNF'd or you finished outside of the points. But generally, a bad weekend for either of these guys still saw them sat in the points. So, yeah, I think Russell for second or potentially even first. I had a really hard time with this, as you can probably tell. And my winner for the Australian Grand Prix, again, I'm touching on the fact that flying under the radar, I think Lando could come out all guns blazing and take this first win in Melbourne. He did so well last year. And yes, I know the cars are different this year, but I don't think either McLaren boy looks unhappy in testing with the package that they've got. I think they both are going to manage really, really well. And I do think that there's every chance that Lando could take the win, could take the opening win. My caveat to all five of these is that I've put them in that order, but realistically, they could end up in any order. Our top five could be in any order. And I really just had to settle on an order that I thought looked reasonable. So, yeah, there's my prediction. So, your top three prediction for me will be Lando to win, Russell in second, and Verstappen in third. But who knows? Now, when it comes to the hit the mark and pull over and park section, I know I probably sound like I'm banging a drum and like a broken record. I did give this a lot of thought, and I was going to go for the low-hanging fruit for the hit the mark of being Mercedes. You know, Mercedes have been so hyped up. They've definitely got their act together this season, it seems. Lots of speculation that they weren't really showing the full hand in testing. As good as they looked, they still weren't showing their full hand. So it would have been very easy to go for the low-hanging fruit, pick Mercedes for my hit the mark. So I've decided to bang my drum again, and I've actually gone for McLaren as my prediction for hit the mark. They go well in Australia. You've got the hometown hero with Oscar Piastri, so that's a positive. And I always think that the home Grand Prix does just give that extra element to a driver's weekend. And again, they're another team that I think that haven't shown the full hand in testing. I think there's a lot more still in the reserve tanks with McLaren. My hope is that this season we will see that they have sorted out the pit stops for both boys because, we saw a lot of talk, didn't we, especially on social media about how McLaren was sabotaging Oscar and that Lando was getting the better pit stops. When we actually looked at it factually and broke it down, both boys suffered. Both boys suffered from some of the strategy calls that were made, and both drivers suffered from mistakes in pit stops. And I'm really, really hoping that now that McLaren, they've won the constructors, 2 years on the bounce. They've now won the drivers. It's like this should be more of a well-oiled machine now, and I'm hoping that they've sorted out the pit stops. Don't really want to talk about papaya rules because there was so much talk about them last year, and really, what can we say about papaya rules? Nobody outside of that team knows what they are realistically, not in detail. So, but I just hope that there is less negativity around the McLaren team this season. And I think that the off-season's probably been a good time for them to reflect on some of the strategy calls they made and definitely on improving the pit stops. And I think the other reason that they're going to hit the mark in Australia is because nobody's expecting them to. And nobody is really talking about McLaren, nobody's talking about Oscar, nobody's talking about Lando. Flying under the radar, as I keep saying. Nobody's really watching what they're doing. It's all Mercedes, and Ferrari, which is great. I mean, we need that, don't we? We don't want that constant dominance from one team. We want to keep things interesting. So it is good to see other teams come into the fore. But don't discount McLaren. Never discount McLaren, because it could just be another papaya year, guys. So moving on to the pullover and park. As I didn't go for the low-hanging fruit with Hit the Mark, I have a little bit gone for the low-hanging fruit with the pullover and park, because I'm quite sure you'll not be surprised that I've picked Aston Martin. I think that Aston Martin car looks incredible. It looks absolutely incredible. It's very innovative. It's a typical Newey car. And I think that for a lot of people, they think that Adrian Newey is the magic bullet. They think that they thought that he was going to go into Aston Martin, design this car, and Fernando was going to get the championship this year. And realistically, no. They've had a delay in getting the facilities ready. The wind tunnel wasn't ready, so the work on the 2026 car was delayed by around 4 months. So they really came into testing on the back foot. But I still don't think anybody was quite prepared for how bad it looked for them in testing. Now, I've heard a couple of people say this could be the most almighty sandbag of all time. And do you know what? I'd raise a glass to them if that's what they've done, but I don't think it's likely. I think they're going to have real issues with the power unit. I think that's going to be a major cause of most of the problems. And I think that everything else can be ironed out over the season as development moves forward, as the season progresses. There's lots of other things that they can iron out and practice and perfect and tweak. But if your underlying power unit is not good, those things become somewhat irrelevant. Because if you're not getting across that finish line, if you're not finishing races, you are not scoring points. And I really think that Aston Martin are going to struggle, at least initially. Like, as I've said, there will be other developments and other progress made. But my main concern is that power unit. I just don't think it's going to deliver for them this year. And I think it's a real shame. I think expectations have been extremely high for Aston Martin. And Adrian Newey, there's no doubt about it, the man is a genius, but he is just one person. And what they need is a cohesive team that works well together, because Adrian can't do everything. So I think there's a lot of work for Aston Martin to do. In a way, they're coming into Australia this weekend with everybody, including myself, going, oh my goodness, these guys are going to finish last if they finish at all. So expectations for them are extremely low for this coming Australian Grand Prix. So it may well be that they might get lucky, and there might be a points finish in there somewhere. And what I'm trying to say is that because the bar is so low for them, anything is going to look good. And that is awful. It's awful to say, because all the promise Aston Martin have had, and they've certainly got the budget. I mean, I know there's a budget cap, but they've certainly got the facilities. I just don't think this is going to be their year, at least for the first half. But we'll see. So there you have it. Predictions for the Australian Grand Prix. What do you guys think? Where do you reckon everybody's going to come out? Do you think it'll be just the top 4 teams and the top 8 drivers in the top 8 places? Oh, I don't know. I think it could be interesting. I do think the next lot of predictions will be at least a little bit easier, because we will, of course, have Australia's results to go on to give us a little bit of a pointer in the right direction. But I'm super excited to see how it all plays out. I'm sure you are too. So please join me on Tuesday the 10th for the Australian Grand Prix review, where we can chat all things Australian Grand Prix. And if you could like and subscribe and follow us on social media, that would be absolutely wonderful, and I would appreciate it so much. So until next time, guys, enjoy the fact that the F1's back, have a great race weekend, and don't forget the cheesy tagline, That Tracks F1 Podcast. Track the action, join the fun.